Okay, so this is going to be a very quick video on the mapping rule and how to use the mapping rule to, in this situation, graph a quadratic function, but this can work for any function. It's basically the same idea and concept. So like we went over in class, there are a few simple steps to follow the mapping, to follow when you're there's a few simple steps to use when you're graphing using the mapping rule. So the first one is going to be step 1. You're simply going to look at your function and you are going to factor. So your function that you're given is f of x is equal to -3 bracket 2x plus 4 and then bracket again plus 4 at the end. So what I like to do here is you're going to factor this middle term right here within the brackets. So you're going to have f of x is equal to, you're going to leave the -3 alone. You're going to pull out the 2, and it's become x plus 2. Oops, that should be a squared over here, which means that this should be a squared here, plus 4. Okay, so now that we factored out the 2 from this bracket here, we're going to go and determine our vertical, horizontal stretches, our and translations. So I'm just going to erase the step 2 here and going to quickly show you how I'm going to find our A, K, C, and D values. Our vertical stretch is always going to be the number outside the bracket and the number right at the front. This is our A value, and this basically means that our function is vertically stretched. I'm just going to erase the function. It just says that our function is vertically stretched by a factor of. So this is our A value, right? Saying that we have a stretch vertically, or a vertical stretch, whatever you want to say, by 3. And you notice that there's a negative sign over there. That means that it's reflected in the x-axis, i.e. this opens downwards. If you say opens downwards, that is okay too, because this is a parabola. All right, now we're going to move on. Our second number here is the 2 over here. That's our K value, right? So this is our horizontal stretch or compression. In this situation, because it's a whole number, we have a horizontal compression, right? If you go back and look at our rules, any greater than 1 is going to be a compression by 1 over 2, by the reciprocal of that number. So you just flip it. So instead of 2 over 1, it becomes 1 over 2. Then we're going to go over and we're going to find our translations. So you have this 2 over here. This 2 over here, because it's within the brackets. So I'm looking at these blue brackets right here. It's within this blue bracket. It is going to be horizontal. So that's a horizontal shift. And since it's a positive 2 in there, when we pull it out, it's a negative, so it's to the left. Horizontal shift left. If you just look at it, it's positive 2 inside, so it's to the left by 2. Okay, and then last but not least, we have this last number. It's outside the bracket, outside this blue bracket, so this is our vertical shift. It's a positive, so up by 4. By 4. Okay, so now that we have all of our shifts and we know all of, so this horizontal is also our C value, our D value, and this is our C value. So now that we have all of our A, K, and C values, we're just going to plot that in and we're going to write those numbers down. We're going to fill it out for ourselves. So step 2, find A, K, C, D. So I just like writing them here. So my A value was -3. Don't forget the negative sign, that's important. 2, for this one, it'll be -2 because we pulled it out, so we just changed the sign. Or sorry, that's D. And then for our C value, it's going to be positive 4. Okay, for some of you, it might just make more sense to go in the order, so we can write the D value first. That's going to be negative 2, right, because I'm pulling it out, and the C will be positive 4. Okay, step 3, make the mapping rule. So your mapping rule is going to always be x over k plus d, a, y plus c, and now you just got to substitute in the k, c, d, and a numbers. So x divided by my k value is 2, plus my d value right here, if you look at it right here, is negative 2. A is going to be negative 3, y plus 4, right? Here, a negative and a positive turn into a negative, so I'm just going to write that in so that it's a little bit more simplified. So it would be minus 2, negative 3y plus 4. This is going to be my mapping rule for my function. So now step 4, write a table of values for parent function. So we're just going to go back and look at this function and figure out what our parent function is. My parent function is going to be, there's a squared right here, so it's x squared, right? If you notice, that's written in vertex form. So that's my parent function. For our purposes, I'm going to make sure the parent function is in green, right? Just so that, I don't know, it's a little bit easier to see if it's in a different color, the table of values. So I'm just going to draw this in right here. X, y. For x squared, we always use negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. So if you look back at lesson 3, you can look at that. Negative 2 goes to 4, 1, 0, 1, 4. So those are always going to be our points for our parent function if it's a per quadratic function. Okay, after that, we're going to use our mapping rule that we made up here. I'm just going to write it again down here so that it's a little bit easier for us to see. X squared minus 2, 3y plus 4, right? I'm going to use those points to now find my second function, which I'm going to write into the equation. Sorry about that. Which I'm just going to write into the C. I'm going to make it blue. We'll make the one that we're trying to graph a different color. So all my x's, all my new y's. How I'm going to find my new x's is by using the x's on this side, right? And just plugging it in there. So I'm going to use negative 2 over 2 minus 2 equals negative 3. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of them. So negative 1 over 2 minus 2 equals negative 2.5, right? And so on. So 0 divided by 2 minus 2 is equal to negative 2. And then 1 divided by 2 minus 2 is equal to negative 1.5. And last but not least, 2 over 2 minus 2 equals 2. And I'm just taking these numbers from this portion of the mapping rule, x over 2 divided by 2. And just replacing all the x's with the x's over there. All right, and then I'm going to do the same thing with y. So I'm going to do 3y plus 4, which was from here, my second part of my mapping rule, right? 3y, so 3 times 4 plus 4 is equal to negative 8. Or sorry, it's negative 3y, just to be clear. Negative 3y plus times 1 plus 4 is going to be a positive 1 again, right? And then negative 3 times 0 plus 4 is going to be 4. Negative 3 again times 1 plus 4 is going to be 1. And then negative 3 times 4 plus 4 is going to be negative 8. Now, these are my new values for my new function, or like my transformed function. I'm just going to draw it in, right? So I'm going to be using these. Like I said, these are going to be my new table. So this is going to be my table of values that I'm going to graph. Because it looks a little bit messy there, I'm just going to draw it out again for you. Right, so all my x's are going to be negative 3, negative 2.5, negative 2, negative 1.5, and a negative 1. This should be 1, negative 1. So I'm going to change it to negative 1. Right, on the other side, it's going to be negative 8, positive 1, 4, 1, negative 8. Okay, so I'm just going to go and make a graph. On a test or a quiz, I would love it if you always labeled it. You do not for this test have communication marks, but you will in the future. Thought I'd just save you the trouble of me actually drawing out that grid for you. So I'm just going to go in and look at the x value. So my x value right here is going to be negative 3, and the corresponding y is negative 8. So I'm going to go look at my x is negative 3 here, and I'm going to go down all the way to negative 8. All right, and then I'm going to go up to negative 2.5, so just in between here and here, and go to positive 1, right? Then I'm going to go to negative 2 all the way up to positive 4, and then I'm going to come back down to negative 1.5 at positive 1, and then I'm going to come down to 1 and negative 8. So my parabola is going to look something like this. I'm sorry, it's such a bad drawing, but that's what my parabola is going to look like. I know it opens downwards because if I go back up and look at my original function, it is a negative 3, right? So that's where my vertex is going to be, so it is opening downwards. I already said that. And that's my new function. In comparison, my other function would have been something like here. Would have been like 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9, 2, 4, 3, 9. So that's what my original function would have looked like. That's my parent. So this is y equals x squared. And this is my function y equals negative 3, 2x plus 4 squared plus 4. That's what that's going to look like. Okay, so if you have any questions, again, feel free to ask. But if not, that is how you use a mapping rule to determine the function. On a test or a quiz, I might ask you how, can you please write out all the stretches and all the translations, which you can just use from here. So you would write translations. Let's just write it down. So you would just write down translations. 1, vertical stretch, or vertically stretched right here, where we were at this part right here. Vertical stretch by 3, 2, reflection in x-axis. You would have a horizontal compression by 1/2, and then the horizontal shift left by 2, and last but not least, vertical shift up by 4. And I'm just going to write that back in there. Okay, thank you for listening. Good luck studying. And I will see you on Wednesday.